This is our only way into Homs, a city under siege. A secret tunnel to rebel-held areas, their sole link to the outside world. And above us, a killing ground. Tonight, Panorama takes you inside the Syrian regime's bloodiest assault on its own people. Over 4 months, we were smuggled in and out to cover a life or death struggle for democracy.
I've never seen a ferocity, the sheer bloody mindedness of them to eradicate the place of both buildings and people.
Now the uprising in Homs has been crushed, and the regime is facing allegations of war crimes. Still, Western governments agonize. Arming the rebels could lead to civil war. But if they don't, how else can the killing be stopped?
أطفال عم تتشرد، أطفال عم تنقتل، ما حرام عليك؟ ليش؟ مشان شو؟ لأنه طلبوا الحرية؟
We first entered Syria late last year, illegally, from neighbouring Lebanon. The regime doesn't allow free access for journalists. For us, this is the only way in. We follow men running guns to the insurgents. Each carries 3 rifles. The last smugglers to pass this way, just a few hours earlier, were ambushed by an army patrol. The next day, activists lead us into Homs. They're risking their lives to help us. Final destination, the district of Baba Amma. We're warned, if the army spots us, they will shoot. The city we've entered is Syria's 3rd largest. Homs is the toughest centre of resistance to the country's police state. Nowhere more than the district of Baba Amma, home to 30,000 people. That night we're taken to a street protest. However tiny, this is part of what they call Free Syria. For the protesters, just being here could mean arrest. This is an act of defiance. This is the Syrian uprising. They've been doing this every day for nearly a year. And they have to protest here, in these side streets, or risk being shot. They exercise liberties they've only dreamt of before, like mocking the president. Bashar Assad and his father before him have ruled over Syria for 40 years. The regime says these people are criminals and terrorists. Dissent is met with brute force. In Baba Amma, they're hemmed in by armoured vehicles. In the district streets, the fear is suffocating. Surrounded by children and grandchildren, we meet Rashida Al-Yassin. She tells me she lost 3 generations of her family in the past few months. Her grandson Khaled was killed by Syrian forces. He'd simply gone out to get food.
On Friday, there was no bread, so he said, "I will bring you some from our house." On the way, a shell came down and hit him on his shoulder.
Her son, Ali, was shot and killed as he joined a protest after praying at the mosque.
Given our situation, I expected something like this. The way they're hitting us, I expected such a thing. The protest was peaceful. They were holding olive branches and shouting, "God is great."
Her husband and a brother-in-law died too. In response, militiamen have taken to the streets. They're here, they say, to protect the people, part of a new force, the Free Syrian Army. All are deserters from the government forces.
They told us to shoot the protesters. I refused. I cannot kill my own countrymen. The officers are pigs. I turned my gun around and shot at the officer that gave the order. I shot at him and ran.
Almost from the beginning, it's been Syrian government propaganda that armed groups, or armed gangs as they're described, are supporting the opposition. Now, after months of protesters being shot down in the streets, that myth has become reality. More and more are joining the insurgency. A gun battle signals another defection. Soldiers are running into Baba Amma under cover of darkness, fired on by members of their old unit. 5 make it out, but a 6th man does not.
We heard him screaming, but then we were under heavy fire. We couldn't go back to get him. The other soldiers were chasing us.
How many follow these men to join the Free Army will determine the outcome of the revolution. New front lines were emerging, following sectarian divisions. Most of the country is Sunni Muslim, but its rulers come from a minority sect, the Alawites. Syria isn't yet a simple story of Sunnis against Alawites and their allies, the Shiites and Christians. But it could become that. From Baba Amma, it was starting to look like a war of neighbourhood against neighbourhood. Abu Muhammad is one of its defenders. Before the uprising, he was a tobacco smuggler. He says there was no other work for Sunni Muslims. Now he's one of those in charge. He says government snipers attack from just across the road. The gunmen here insist their role is solely to protect civilians. But there's no doubt the conflict is escalating.
We set out to ambush some of the snipers firing at civilians from the rooftops. Thanks be to God, we succeeded in killing at least one.
These are the streets of Baba Amma.
But the target for the district's new breed of citizen journalists, like this British Syrian, remains President Assad.
Every second a rocket could land right next to them.
After he shot the first bullet, killed the first guy, he actually shot the fear in our hearts. No one was scared anymore. We would rather die than to live under his control.
Baba Amma's people had a promise from the rebels. They would never abandon them. But we left wondering, how long could they hold out? After 2 months, we're able to return to Homs, still in rebel hands. On the way, we meet a large group of Free Army fighters. We join them as they prepare to attack a nearby army base. They're going to try to get this bomb up to the entrance and detonate it. It's just before dawn. The attack is big. 100 men. They seem well trained and have a battle plan. They're to start it by firing the heaviest weapons in their arsenal, even though they have just 2 of them. Then the base starts to return fire, just as our cameraman Fred Scott is filming.
The sun came up, shooting started, and nothing really went to plan.
The rebels mainly have Kalashnikovs. The army, artillery. Mortars start to drop on the hillside.
We were pretty much pinned down the whole time until it was time to go.
Okay, Paul and Fred, move with the guys.
After nearly an hour of exchanging fire like this, we had to run away.
Get across this fast. Go, go. That's a bad place here. Go.
They don't get their bomb even close to the base. The attack has failed.
Okay, you tell me when.
I don't know. Yeah. All of these men are Syrian army defectors, and they've been attacking in the base below men who until only recently were their comrades in arms. Remarkably, they escape without casualties. The rebels believe that most of the army wants to join them. But the commander of this rebel unit is tired of waiting.
If they wanted to defect, they would have gone long ago. The crimes of the Assad regime, from the start of this revolution until now, are very clear. So they don't have any excuse not to defect. They should be with us.
For some, this is a religious war, and one they feel they're winning. But while we were with them, the regime was preparing an offensive. It would start just a few miles away, in Homs. The shelling is relentless, indiscriminate. Artillery against residential areas. We head towards the city. We're told it's impossible to get in. The government's army is attacking from the Christian, Shiite and Alawite areas. The rebel Free Army has fallen back to the Sunni enclave of Baba Amma. It's surrounded. But the rebels have a lifeline, a tunnel, right under the front lines. We slip through the outer cordon around Homs. This was the uprising's best-kept secret, the only way in or out of Baba Amma.
We ran into a metal shed, and there was a gaping hole and 6 inches of mud, and climbed down these rungs about 20 feet into pitch blackness. What the hell is going on here?
It's a water course, 2 miles long, less than 5 feet high. I'm ahead, with Fred Scott filming behind. We try to run. We don't want to be here if a Syrian patrol starts dropping grenades down. Above ground, we emerge into a ghost town. It already seems very different from the last time we were here. The streets are empty. Everyone's waiting for the next round of shelling to begin.
بابا عمر 11 2011 بابا عمر تقصف الله أكبر. المشفى ضربوا المشفى.
Shells come in every few seconds. It's not a battle. Baba Amma has no heavy weapons. Shelling's been going on here all morning now, and what you hear over and over again from the people is that they feel abandoned by the outside world. We take cover in a house. A family's sheltering too. But the houses here have thin walls, no basements. There's barely any protection.
The children are so afraid. They follow me around the house. I say, don't worry, everything will be okay. God will take revenge for us.
The makeshift clinics are overwhelmed. There are no supplies and few doctors. People come here because they're afraid of arrest at a state hospital. Even here, many hide their faces, terrified the regime will hunt them down. Still, one man wants to tell the world 11 members of his family have died, 5 of them children.
They were under 13 years of age. They were killed at the same time by cluster bomb. We couldn't tell one piece of them from another when we came to bury them.
People here had hoped the UN would protect them. But that morning, Russia and China vetoed a resolution to help. They're angry at their Arab neighbours too. Why aren't they helping? The people here are afraid. The regime believes it has a free hand to do whatever it wants. Undoubtedly, most of the victims are civilians, many children. Wrapped in the shroud is a 7-year-old girl, killed in the shelling. The attendant carefully writes her name, Hanadi. He's done this for 4 members of his own family too. Hanadi must be buried at night. Daytime is too dangerous. Even now, even here, they are attacked. There's no family, no prayers, and little dignity. By now, tanks were at the edges of Baba Amma, and it seemed they were about to come in.
We could definitely feel that time was up for Baba Amma, and the intensity of the shelling meant that we had a chance to go, and we took it.
We're able to escape, but a small group of journalists comes in after us. Like us, they stay in the media centre. It's really just an apartment used by activists, but it has a generator, internet and hot water. The activists believe it's only the media coverage that is restraining the regime.
What is killing this regime is the media. This is the strongest weapon we've got right now in Homs. It's getting the news out. If we weren't getting the news out, how's the world going to know what's going on inside of Syria?
Among the journalists at the house, Marie Colvin. one of the best and bravest foreign correspondents of her generation. This was her last report.
I watched a little baby die today, absolutely horrific, just a 2-year-old been hit. They stripped it and found the shrapnel had gone into the left chest, and the doctor just said, I can't do anything, and his little tummy just kept heaving until he died. That is happening over and over and over.
After a number of near misses, a devastating volley finds the media centre. Marie's photographer was injured in the blast.
We realised the house was taking direct hits. At that point, obviously, adrenaline's high. I, stupidly enough, was actually looking for my camera at the time, thinking the attack was over, and I would get a few shots of the chaos in the house when the shell hit.
The impact reduced the building to rubble. Marie Colvin and a French photographer, Remy Ochlik, were killed instantly. Did the regime deliberately target them? The attack certainly removed the last independent witnesses, just as the army closed in. A month later, we decide to try to go back. For a third time, we're heading to the Syrian border. This morning, after 25 days of continuous shelling, the Syrian ground attack began in Baba Amma. We hear it has already fallen.
We're just about to cross the border, and it's always pretty tense, but there's a feeling that this time things are more chaotic than ever.
We're travelling with rebel fighters. We're still in what they like to call Free Syria, though that's shrinking fast. As children here enjoy the snow, a few miles away, the rebel front line is collapsing. The wounded are already starting to come out ahead of the government advance. The security forces entered Baba Amma only after the rebel fighters, the Free Army, withdrew. This was State TV's version of events.
Syrian TV camera toured areas in Baba Amru and recorded the huge devastation caused by the armed terrorist groups who committed horrific crimes against civilians there.
The people of Baba Amma, getting drinking water from snow, might not agree with that. But they told me time and again they felt betrayed by the Free Army. Baba Amma's Free Army is divided. Some wanted to stay. Others said leaving was the only way to stop the shelling and save the civilians.
It took 25 days for the Syrian army, with all its might, to capture just one neighborhood of Homs. We will always be proud of this. We will hold our heads high because of it until the day we die.
But there are other questions about the rebels. This shocking video shows Syrian army prisoners captured in December. The rebels told me they executed all of them, saying they were guilty of war crimes. This will worry Western governments as they debate arming the rebels. In the wake of the Free Army's retreat, Baba Amma was emptying. We met just a small part of the exodus.
These people have been sneaking out of Homs through the orchard, not through any official checkpoints. And we're told that several thousand have made it out in exactly the same way.
One of them addresses President Assad directly.
تحت الليل طالعتنا هديت البيوت فوق راسنا، الله لا يوفقك. اطفال عم تتشرد، اطفال عم تنقتل، ما حرام عليك؟ ليش؟ مشان شو؟ لانه طلبوا الحريه؟
This group walked for 3 days to avoid the soldiers. They're terrified of what government forces are doing now they're back in control.
Whoever they catch on a checkpoint is dead. Dead.
They took our boys and men. They took the boys from the houses and the men at the checkpoints.
Everywhere we go, we meet groups of women and children without men. The Ibrahim family tell me they witnessed a massacre. Dozens of men and boys were seized, they say, killed in the street. 4 of their own family, including a 12-year-old boy.
They laid them all on the ground. The soldiers were pinning them down with their boots, while 4 of them were cutting their throats. They did this with the knives. Their hands were tied behind their backs like this. Then they started slaughtering them.
There was a raid. My father went to open the door. I said to him, "Run away." He told me, "But I haven't done anything." And he opened the door and they took him. My uncle, my brother, my cousin too.
Can such horror stories be true? We can't know for certain yet. But yesterday, pictures emerged of bodies apparently in the place the family describe. The regime denies it's responsible for war crimes, blaming the rebels. President Assad insists he's all that stands in the way of all-out civil war. He's refusing to stand down, refusing to negotiate. But has the uprising really been crushed?
We'd rather live under missiles, under bullet fire, and we're free. We will never go back to the way we used to live. Never.
Baba Amma paid dearly for its defiance. What was done here was intended perhaps as a warning to the rest of the country. Many of those we spoke to for this film have since been killed. The sniper, Abu Muhammad, the commander, Abu Yahya, and Rashida, who lost her husband, son and grandson, herself shot by a sniper. As 7-year-old Hanadi is buried, has the regime really won a lasting victory? That depends on whether international outrage hardens into action. For now, the outside world remains paralysed, a spectator, as Syria collapses into civil war.